Had the big sell-off last week. We had more selling this week, but NVIDIA recovering again. Just be going back up to fill the gaps, get a lower high. Topping tail is to hold in the weekly time frame. Negative divergence, or we might get another reference point of a divergence, a recent price action in the weekly time frame to form a divergence here on the RSI. If that happens, again, it's possible divergence develop on NASDAQ and S&P 500 with their RSIs in the daily time frame. But we're turning back up, getting back above our 20-period moving average. Same thing, you got the MACD rolling over, still the possibility of a divergence on NVIDIA. So again, helping NASDAQ. I've been talking about the possibility of divergences, even S&P forming one, but yet NASDAQ making a lower high. That's still possible, and we've seen that already on a smaller scale. Last week's peak, NASDAQ peaked previous week on Monday, and then he went higher on Thursday with our short trading week the previous week there. There was a little divergence. It may be a larger one, but just keep your eye on NVIDIA. You do have the possibility of a divergence here on the RSI, confirmation of a lower high. Back at the March peak, we had this bearish engulfing here, and we turned down, and then we kind of went sideways, and we got a slightly lower high. And then we rolled over and got the sell-off into April. So again, do we get a lower high? Do we get a higher high? Here, we got a lower high on the RSI, just slightly lower. The MACD, it tried to turn up and it couldn't do it. Again, MACD got a lower high without crossing above the signal line. Now, if we can recover further to fill the gaps or even try to make a new high, again, NASDAQ could rebound further. I've been talking about it great length in detail. NVIDIA had a sharp push down Monday. We've recovered most of that now, and again, we'll see how we close by the end of the week, but we got the topping tail, you get those negative diversions. Maybe we get a divergence right here in the most recent price action. Candlestick reversal patterns mean nothing unless they're confirmed and you get a follow through, but you can see the divergences that are developing here, stochastic and on the RSI. We'll see how NVIDIA closes for the week. Now it's attempting a recovery. We have a couple of gaps. We're watching the topping tail here in the weekly time frame. NASDAQ was up 1.16% today, up 226.5 points. And again, you've got the same thing going on here. Possible divergence or confirmation of a lower high in the RSI. We had the bearish engulfing candlestick. It got confirmed, but there's been no follow through. You need to push below this level right here, this low right here, the confirmation bar, to get the follow through. Don't have that. The MACD hasn't rolled over yet. It still might turn back up and again come back up here, get a lower high, and then turn back down, or try to form a divergence and get a higher high on the RSI. We got a topping tail, weekly time frame. High may hold. If NASDAQ, which has gotten a bigger sell-off than S&P, rallies back up further, forms a lower high, S&P makes a higher high, we'll have another divergence. NASDAQ peaked just over a week ago on the previous Monday, last week, and S&P, we had that short trading week. When we came back from the holiday, S&P went slightly higher, NASDAQ did not, and we got the bearish engulfing candlestick. Again, regardless of how it plays out, you still have the possible head and shoulders top pattern. Maybe the peak is here, maybe it's a little higher if we get the diversions, and then we'll be looking for a sell-off to come back down here to 17,000 for the neckline. For the right side of the head formation, which is likely going to be the divergence in the weekly time frame that gives us that sell-off. Again, we've got the diversions going on in the weekly time frame. I show you this in every single video. Again, here we have the trend line scaling with the rising wedge. If I exclude the shadow, connect this level and this level here, these two peaks, again, we slammed right into it last week with the topping tail gravestone doji. Got to have confirmation with the doji if it's going to mean anything or produce a reversal. But the time is likely short given that we have this divergence. But as I've said, again, you can hover around the highs for a little while like we did over here before getting a bigger drop, just as we did over here before getting a bigger drop. The last divergence gave us a pullback. This divergence will likely give us a reversal. This is the log scaling. Each divergence has produced a correction or a reversal. A reversal, a reversal, a correction, a correction. This larger one will likely produce a reversal. Quickly, the linear scaling, a little bit different. Again, if we take that from this level, you've got more of a channel. The red trend line includes the shadow there, and you got a nice looking channel with the divergence. NASDAQ weekly chart, got it going on down here on the MACD as well. And I told you the VIX got that black candlestick yesterday. I told you it might turn down, and we might see the S&P go up and form that divergence on the RSI in the daily and in the 60-minute time frame, turning down off this level, just like we turned down off of the 200 over here and dropped back below the 50. Both black candlesticks, and again had a downturn with volatility today. The VIX was down 3.68%, dropping back under 13, and again, it might be see further consolidation here or even a new low that's possible. So far we've had a higher low with the VIX. The S&P moved to a higher high in a discrepancy. It still might be we move to a lower low, but again, there might be further consolidation here if the S&P tries to make a new high to form the divergences I've been talking about in an overall topping process. And divergences are about to play out, but we've got to complete a topping process first. That may not be done. May be done on NASDAQ, but not yet S&P. My signals remain bullish. Please consider supporting the channel with the link directly below. That allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the indicators or like the charts, please let me know that by supporting the channel. I do need your help in order to make it work. Take a moment to do that. I would really appreciate it. Just follow the link below. It'll take you to a secured site. You can donate any amount you want. I just ask that you do what you can to help out, because I don't have any sponsors. They contact me all the time. I turn the offers down because I don't want to sell you a bunch of stuff. That's how channels make money on YouTube. The majority of the money through sponsorship, which I would rather not do that. So if you can just help out, take a moment to do that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you for your consideration for that. Again, the S&P has come up to this long-term trend line again from the 2000 top connected to the 2022 high, and again, it looks like we're just right underneath it. Turn off of this level. As a monthly chart, it'll be interesting to see what kind of monthly close we get. This is the last trading week for the month, so we'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Again, if we go up a little higher, we're going to slam right into this level here, just under it. For high holds, then maybe it's close but no cigar, but again, we could go a little bit higher. But you got these divergences, multiple point divergences. Every single one of them has led to a major sell-off. This time is going to be no different. And this time, you're coming up to a major trend line. Just like in 2022, you came up to this trend line right here that, again, produced this major sell-off back to the 50-month moving average. This multiple point divergence will likely produce a reversal. Divergence is the smallest sell-off that we've had, has been 17%. These were major bear markets. These were major corrections. The next sell-off we see will likely be a reversal, actually ushering in the bear market. The Fed moves towards a pivot. Market will likely peak to turn before that happens. You say this is an election year. That can't happen. Well, 1,000. It peaked, it went back up to, in March, went back up to test the highs and got a lower high in August and began to sell off the rest of the year. That was an election year. So was 2008, the financial crisis. That was an election year. We've had a rally the first half of the year, could be the second half of the year is weak with a recession coming and a Fed pivot. Eventually another banking crisis with the commercial real estate mess eventually spilling over into the banks. It's going to happen. Again, momentum has not shifted. We'll have a bearish reversal of conditions. We're bouncing off the 10 period on the NASDAQ or on the S&P, and on NASDAQ where we dropped below it and we got back above it. Again, I talked about a possible inverted hammer candlestick that could still take us up. Again, here's a trend line for a rising wedge. I've been talking about the channels on the 60-minute time frame. I've been talking about this rising wedge on the daily. If we exclude the shadows over here, you got still a really nice looking rising wedge, and we still may go up and hit this upper trend line connecting these two peaks right here. And end up getting a divergence. The RSI is turning back up. You may see that divergence develop here and get a big rally and then begin to turn back down and break this trend line or move back to that other channel line that I've been talking about on the 60-minute chart. Remember, again, the MACD has not even rolled over in the daily time frame. Again, it may be that it turns back up along with the RSI and gets a little miniature diversions here in the more recent price action. We get any kind of reversal starting. Momentum remains bullish. Signals remain bullish. And again, a channel in the daily time frame connecting these lows and the dotted line there. So again, just some things, but again, we're trying to bounce off our 10-period moving average. Hit a negative divergence last Friday here, but maybe we make our way back to the upper Bollinger Band. We did get a perfected 9 count again the previous Monday when NASDAQ peaked and got the 9-9 signal. Sometimes when you get that, you turn immediately. Other times you form a top consolidating near the highs. Watching, can S&P move higher? If we do, we're watching the RSI in the 60-minute time frame. Again, same thing with NASDAQ and S&P, possible head and shoulders formation. If we've peaked or if we peaked shortly after our high from last Thursday, again, you've got the possibility of a head and shoulders formation. Again, S&P is likely putting the finishing touches on a top with this divergence that we have in the weekly time frame. And the divergences that formed in the past did not allow prices to keep going in the direction they were going. The bullish divergence ended the sell-off. The bearish divergences ended the rallies. This time is not going to be any different. It could be done with last week's high if that was it. It may be that the S&P completes a divergence on the RSI daily and the 60-minute time frame before it happened this week I've been talking about. Even if the S&P goes higher, still may get a topping tail before the week ends, similar to the topping tail we had on NASDAQ last week with the gravestone doji. So just some things to be paying attention to, because this divergence is very likely going to produce a reversal very, very soon. But again, my signals remain bullish. We've got to see momentum shift and then have it turn and flipped the trend signals to bearish. We do not have that. My signals remain bullish. It's probably not going to last too much longer. We've got the divergence on other indicators, the MACD and many others, like the awesome oscillator in the weekly time frame on the S&P. It's got a red bar, even though we're trying to rebound back up. And again, had a red bar last week, but it went away. We'll see if it does it this week. Even if we rally back up, you might see a topping tail before the week ends. The week is young. Got the Independence Day holiday coming up with another short trading week coming up, and we'll be watching to see what happens. I'll be watching to see if we close out the week with the red bar. I'll be watching to see last week's high hold or not, or did we go higher? The divergence that I think is likely going to form, then begin to turn. We'll be watching to see how it unfolds. Remember, we're going to get the inflation data as well. Friday before the market opens, we're going to get the PCE inflation data. Daily chart S&P still has a bullish reversal of conditions. We're still above the 10-period moving average, bouncing off of it. We've got red here going on. You could still see green form a divergence here, or rally and have bars remain red and eventually have the rally fail, get a reversal of conditions. But again, watch to see if we get that divergence forming on the RSI in the daily and on the 60-minute chart. Signals, again, momentum, trend signals remain bullish. Same thing here for the NASDAQ daily chart. We did take out the 10 and then we got back above it. Again, you might form a divergence. You might confirm a lower high. Again, if we start seeing a bearish reversal of conditions, a cloud flipping to green to red, the bars flipping to red, momentum's going to be shifting back down. Right now, we don't have that for the NASDAQ or the S&P 500. NASDAQ in the weekly time frame does not have the red awesome oscillator bar. The S&P does, but you've got the same divergences on the MACD and the awesome oscillator. We've got our topping tail. We'll see if the topping tail holds from last week. We may go up and flirt with it, lower high or even a higher high, and get another reversal bar. Sometimes you get back-to-back reversal bars. That's common. Even if NASDAQ does form a divergence, again, it might form back-to-back reversal bars. We'll be watching if we try to build upon the rally ahead of the inflation data. We're seeing an attempted bounce off the 50-period moving average On the S&P 500, again, still below the momentum line, the purple line right there, and the momentum cloud, but doing the same thing NASDAQ doing, attempting a recovery and seeing momentum turn back to bullish in the 60-minute time frame. So again, I think that you could see the pattern that I've been talking about. Yesterday, I talked about the bull flag. I'll show it to you up close in a moment here, this bull flag that's developing here. I think that you could see that break out, still form a divergence here in the 60-minute time frame. NASDAQ very well may have peaked with the topping tail. We got the gravestone doji in the weekly time frame last week. And again, sometimes S&P and NASDAQ diverge at major turning points. We already have a small divergence from last week when S&P moved to a new high on Thursday, but NASDAQ had peaked Monday. It may be that we get a larger divergence between the two. Certainly possible. But momentum turning up, again, causing me to believe that we're attempting a recovery. The larger divergence I've been talking about on the 60-minute chart of the S&P on the RSI very well could be in play. You could even see a divergence point here with this peak right here develop with momentum. And I've drawn a couple of channels in here connecting with the red line this low and this low, with the blue line this low and this low over here. The red channel, again, just drawn a parallel boundary up here with this high right here, and that would take us higher. Assuming the S&P attempts to make a new high, we don't have to. It may be that the peak is in, start to roll over and see momentum shift, and then trend signals turn bearish. But I've talked about this divergence. We got almost two equal peaks here on the RSI previously. We went higher on Thursday with S&P. NASDAQ made a lower high. They did diverge there, but you have this little Class B divergence. Maybe that we get a Class A divergence where we get a lower high and we get a higher high on the S&P at one of these trend lines. Now again, the red trend line is higher. The blue trend line, if I just connect this peak with this peak right here, that's directly overhead. And again, it's a nice parallel channel from these lows back over here. So again, we'll be watching and see the parallel channel that I think is likely to play on NASDAQ later in the video. But I'll be watching to see if we form a divergence here on these RSIs. I've talked about this at great length and detail. I think it's very, very possible. And you can confirm a lower high. Should be watching the 50-period moving average and the MACD. If we tried to firm up on the MACD and tried to get back above the 50, we're trying to bounce off the 50 here, dipping below it. I'll show you this up close. S&P was up 21.5 points. It was up 0.39% for the session. Again, I talked about yesterday this bull flag at horizontal support here, and I told you if we can rebound here off of the 50 period, get some traction off of it, the bull flag can play out. We came back up, we bounced off support, and again, we're just below that upper boundary. If you break out tomorrow with a gap higher or a slight pullback and then a breakout, however it plays out, again, you might form that divergence on the RSI. But take a look at the MACD. Again, we're back above the 50. Okay, we're just under the purple line there, which is the momentum line right there, and momentum cloud here. And again, look at the MACD. If we can firm up here, which again we're trying to do, we start seeing this firm back up. You can get this divergence in the 60-minute time frame. We already had a divergence at this peak right here on the MACD. You might get a triple divergence out of this. Similar thing for the MACD on the NASDAQ 60-minute chart, which I'll show you later in the video. But again, I want you to be watching the broken trend line. Do we break the trend line and back test and start going down and getting some shifting, or do we attempt to rebound? Again, momentum in the daily time frame is still bullish. And again, now you're forming this bull flag. So I think you're going to attempt to go higher on S&P, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the NASDAQ make a lower high and S&P make a higher high, although they both may make a higher high. But I'm just telling you, you've got that topping tail. Go back and test it. We'll see what happens. Again, it's not confirmed. Talking about these divergences on the 60-minute chart, I've been talking about the divergences possibly developing on the daily chart for these RSIs. But again, it looks to me like we're going to attempt a bigger recovery, and if so, the S&P can move to a new high. The divergence going on in the daily and the weekly time frame might be one form in the daily time frame. And again, soon that divergence is going to play out weekly chart, but we are in a topping process in all likelihood. We'll be watching to see if last week's highs hold or not. I think that this divergence, as I've been talking about, still very, very possible. Momentum on the S&P 500 still bullish here. The trend's still bullish. P also attempting a rebound, like NASDAQ being helped by NVDA. S&P intraday momentum is bearish. The trend is still hanging in there, still bullish. We're going kind of flatlined here. If we can get a bigger recovery, momentum might shift back to bullish. Then again, you could either get a divergence or a confirmation of a lower high. We do go and make a divergence on the S&P, will NASDAQ join it, or will S&P and NASDAQ get a larger divergence from one another? We already have one from last week. On Thursday, NASDAQ made a new high last Thursday, or I'm sorry, S&P made a new high. The NASDAQ peaked the previous Monday, over a week ago. Watching to see if momentum shifts back up, if we can salvage things here on the S&P and save it from flipping the trend signals. But right here in the intraday time frame, momentum is bearish. Trend is still hanging in there at the moment. Now, if you watch the video, you'll see NASDAQ is getting warning signs right here of a potential bigger pullback or possible top. We don't have that for the S&P. And again, while momentum still bullish on NASDAQ, and here the momentum line still bullish here on the S&P, there are other warning signs on NASDAQ that we do not have here on the S&P 500 at the moment. So again, we'll see what happens. One reason could be is maybe NASDAQ has peaked and S&P has not. They get a larger divergence from one another, but it's still possible NASDAQ goes higher. But I'll be watching that topping tail in the weekly time frame on NASDAQ. You still got the possibility of divergences on all kinds of the indicators here. And while we've had a pullback, it has not flipped momentum. Seen signals per day go bearish. May change if we attempt to recover, started to recover today and continue tomorrow. Again, when things begin to turn, we'll see the momentum turn. We'll see the bars begin to turn to red, reflecting a shift in momentum, and you'll get something that looks like this over here, and then it will eventually be validated with momentum going negative here. Momentum and trend signals here on S&P remain bullish. We may have started a recovery today at the S&P 500 intraday here. Again, some positive signs. Momentum is flipping back to bullish. Okay, it's back to bullish here. Trend signal was bullish, went bearish, back to bullish, going flatlined again, back to bullish. The line reflecting the trend, we dropped below it. Okay, now we're getting back above it. Bullish signal there. And S&P, we had a sell signal here. You got a bullish signal here, but we still went lower. Now momentum is confirming that signal by turning back to bullish, getting back above this line representing the trend. Correction may be done. We could be setting up a lower high, or again, S&P can get a higher high from a divergence on the RSI in the 60-minute time frame. If signals revert right back to bearish, then again, the bullish signals are canceled out. New sell signals would override the bullish signals. But right now, sell signals back up here. We try to turn bullish here, get some green bars, couldn't flip the trend. We're getting more bullish signals here after turning and going lower. Signals would have to be validated by being able to flip the trend here intraday by getting above this level here, right around the 5485 area or so. Below that right now. So we'll see if we do see a rally and we get above the 5485 area, you're going to see things, momentum turn the trend in intraday back to bullish here, the S&P 500. Open the door to challenge the high over here and get a divergence. Conform on the 60-minute RSI, which conform on the daily RSI. Have to move to a new high, but we could. Signals here intraday start turning back to bullish. A moment ago, intraday chart showing bearish momentum, but the trend was still bullish. Here, trend signals are more sensitive, so the trend and momentum did turn bearish. Momentum's now trying to turn back to bullish. Green candlesticks, the momentum line turning back to bullish. You're getting bullish things going on back above this line representing the trend. So again, we'll see shaded gray areas telling us something is getting ready to happen. A big move down or up is getting ready to happen. Oh, it could be still under construction. May happen immediately. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So momentum flipping back to bullish intraday. I'll see if that helps the daily chart. Momentum and the trend is still bullish on the S&P 500 daily chart, so do keep that in mind. Again, I think this channel right here is most likely on NASDAQ. Again, if you connect these two highs right here and connect these two lows, you've got a really nice looking parallel channel. Again, we could be going up right now to get a lower high or a higher high going up and hitting that upper channel right now. Divergence forms on the daily chart. It may not, because we got the topping tail in the weekly time frame, and we may see a divergence if the S&P moves to a new high. NASDAQ may not do it, but momentum is flipping back up here. If we can get above the 50, as I'll talk about in a moment, you can get above the 50-period moving average. You can get MACD back in positive territory, which I'll show you in just a moment. Then we can rebound here off of the cloud, the trending cloud of support. We did get above the momentum line and the momentum cloud. Got to clear that 50-period moving average for a bigger rebound on the NASDAQ here. We've been talking about the trend lines on NASDAQ. I'll show you that in a moment. But again, momentum, we became very oversold here, and now we're rebounding back up. Got back above the momentum line, got back above the momentum cloud. We're still in the trending cloud there that is red in the future. If we get back above the 50 period here, you can either go up and make a lower high, or you can go up and get a higher high and form the divergence on the RSI or confirmation of a lower high in the daily time frame. But we are clearing that level. If we can clear the 50, then we can go higher. This is a 60-minute chart of the NASDAQ. Bouncing off the cloud of support, just above the support and resistance line here. Take a look at the 60-minute chart here with the RSI. Again, I talked about a possible divergence developing on the RSI. Again, we didn't have one right here. We got a lower high on Thursday. Last Thursday, S&P went higher. S&P did get a divergence form. It's a Class B. The RSI is kind of at two equal peaks where price went higher, but could still get a divergence here or confirmation of a lower high if we can get above the 50-period moving average. If you can get back above the 50 period in the momentum cloud and the MACD back into positive territory, which it did get a bullish cross, but it's still a negative territory, then you can come up here and you can get a divergence going on right there. While the RSI did not form a divergence, the MACD did right here. Could see a triple divergence here on the 60-minute chart of NASDAQ 100. Okay, what I'll be watching this week for the NASDAQ 100 is the weekly chart. Again, does this high hold? Do we get a lower high, or do we try to form that divergence? And again, it's had a bigger sell-off than S&P. S&P could move to a new high. We could get a lower high with NASDAQ. Certainly possible here in the weekly time frame if this high holds, and then sell off weekends or shortly thereafter. But something to pay attention to, this gravestone doji here in the weekly time frame. And in order for it to mean anything, it has to be confirmed with the close below it, and then you got to get a follow through after that. We'll see if that happens here in the next week or two, if we drop and close below that level this week or next week. And just over a week ago, we got the 9 signal, which formed a 9-9 reversal pattern for the NASDAQ. Again, high may hold here as a peak. Sometimes you go a little higher. If we do that, then again, you could still get the divergence on the RSI. Could even see, again, S&P and NASDAQ diverge from one another still, where we got the lower high on last Thursday with NASDAQ. S&P made a higher high, and possible large head and shoulders pattern under construction here, or if we go make a new high with the divergence and then turn, but the negative divergences in the weekly time frame could start a reversal to maybe develop this pattern. Too early to tell if it will form. Certainly a possibility. NASDAQ 100 daily chart here. Momentum here has not shifted for the NASDAQ. The momentum line is still bullish, but we're getting some warning signs here and a warning of a possible top. After getting that topping tail last week. So again, just some things to be paying attention to with NASDAQ. This is the NASDAQ daily chart. We're seeing some signs of weakness. This could just mean a short-term peak and still form the diversions, or it may be suggesting a peak. We'll be watching to see if momentum shifts or not in the next few days. Do go higher, do we form divergences, indicators, and even here with momentum, possibly a divergence or confirmation of a lower high. But I'm getting warning signs that momentum might begin to shift here. So we'd have to take out the cloud here. We'd have to see the bars turn to red. The bars, we've sold off on NASDAQ, but the bars are still green here, reflecting momentum. The momentum line has not yet turned to red. So we'll be watching to see what happens. But there are some warning signs. After we got that peak, previous Monday over here, we went back up. We got a lower high, slightly lower high, got that red bar. It's still green, reflecting the trend, or reflecting momentum here. And we got some signals over here, but it just gave us a pullback. Couldn't flip the trend. We'll be watching, taking out the cloud. We'll be watching to see what happens here. Is this just giving us a short-term pullback, and we end up forming a divergence on things like the RSI, set up a lower high, and we start seeing the momentum flip and turning to bearish. Momentum signals, some are turning bearish here. Momentum line is still bullish. Signal still bullish for NASDAQ. Even with the pullback with NASDAQ, momentum here, again, also hanging in there. The momentum line, we've seen some weakness with some momentum signals of a possible turn. Momentum line is still bullish, and here we're still bullish. The trend is still bullish. NASDAQ daily chart, we'll see if it changes. Now we're attempting a rebound with the help of NVIDIA.